All right, my name's Kevin. I'm going to be hosting this panel. Today, we're going to talk about prompting and turning that into ad creative and then actually running the creative. Show of hands, who actually has a Shopify store where they're running ads or making ads or building ads? Okay, so about 10, 15% of you actually have Shopify stores. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. The first prompt that I will give you as panelists is, what's the last product that you bought directly from a brand using their Shopify store?
There we go.
Oh, and don't forget to introduce yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Hi, I'm Sib. I'm one of the founders of Branch. We sell office furniture to people and to teams. I know Latif, who's somewhere over here, has a Branch desk, so at least one of our customers in this room. And I run our product and growth teams, so the whole acquisition stack from top of the funnel through the site and some other cool projects we're working on the digital side. The last product I bought from a brand is my Pendulum probiotics. They're apparently great at keeping your sugar metabolism under control. I'll report back in a few months when I know what they did to my sugar levels, but that's what I bought.
Hi, I'm Apoorva. I'm the founder of Best Ever. And the last thing that I bought directly from a Shopify brand was Away luggage. I think Away is on Shopify. So yeah, that was the last one.
Away is a Shopify brand. Which color luggage?
So I bought a carry-on, and then I also bought I'm a sucker for add-ons, so I got one of those little bathroom
Luggage tag?
Yeah, a packing cube. That's right. Yeah, one of those packing cubes. Yeah, it was great. I'm very influenced by all the TikTok influencers about organizing everything, and yes, I like getting influenced.
Awesome. So my name is Kevin, co-founder of Upscale AI, and we use AI to make and then buy and then measure television ads. So one of the partners we work with is Branch. We will take all of their existing assets, create a concept, write a script, and then match the existing assets with the creatives. So that's what we do. The last product I bought from a brand is this necklace from Minted, which is a New York-based Shopify brand. It's Minted Running that did an event here last month. So let's start talking about tools. And when we talk about tools, we're either talking about like tools like Upscale or Best Ever, or we're talking about like the LLMs themselves, ChatGPT, et cetera. So in your day-to-day life as somebody running a company, running a brand, what's the last or one of the tools that you use and how do you go about using it?
Cool. Yeah. I'll just start by framing how we think about the AI tool landscape. I would say there's broadly two buckets for us. There's growth related AI tooling and more efficiency related tooling. And in the efficiency bucket, there's organizational efficiency, things that make the whole team work better, and more personal efficiency. I'll just give an example in that last bucket for now, just because it's top of mind. Today, I was drafting utility patents using Claude. And not only doing the drafting, but actually generating the figures. If anyone has done any patent work, that's really annoying. It's shockingly good, like scarily good. And hopefully it'll save me like $30,000 of lawyer fees. So it's one recent example.
I won't say ChatGPT because I saw everybody raise their hand. So obviously ChatGPT, but there's two different places where I love using AI. The first one is obviously for analysis, some kind of deep analysis that I don't have the time to read, like a 10-page document, and I just want a summary. So it's one of my very favorite use cases. And then the second one is for scaling content specifically. So the second piece we actually use Best Ever for, we basically do performance marketing creative. So images and videos that go on TikTok or Meta and things like that, using AI. And one use case that it was such a lifesaver this morning is I was doing a demo recording and I did the voiceover yesterday. And then today when I was looking at the video, the voiceover and this were like meandering, right? It wasn't as sharp as I wanted it to be. I re-recorded it and then I lip synced it using our own tool because we can do that. And that was such a lifesaver, not having to redo the whole thing. When I'm wearing different clothes, I'm in a different place. Obviously, it doesn't look right. Those are my two favorite use cases, content scaling and obviously, not having to read 10 pages of analysis.
Awesome. So what I like to tell people is when we get an asset from a company like Branch, we will have Gemini, which is Google's product, watch the video and it'll tag all of the different things that are happening in the video. So it'll tag things like laptop, desk, person, dog, all of those things. And it also timestamp like when those objects are in the actual videos. Then we use a different model, Whisper, to listen to the transcripts. Shockingly, Gemini is not good at listening. So you got to figure out which models are good at which different things. So Whisper will listen to the transcripts. And so if there's somebody who's making a desk and in the transcript, they say it was easy to assemble, we're able to then use Whisper to detect when they said easy to assemble. And we want to make sure that there was a desk on the screen or in the video when that was happening. So we're able to do the object detection combined with the transcripts and figure out, okay, in this 7-second scene, the person has a desk that they're assembling and they're also the voiceover matches that. So those are some of the tools that we're using in terms of the actual product. When it comes to using the tools like day to day, like I posted to LinkedIn earlier today and I went back and forth with ChatGPT figuring out like a viral hooky LinkedIn post that I could put on there. And then I used a tool actually called Descript to be able to do some light video editing. We're going to use it after this conference where we take the full video from this event. We can click a button and it'll take out all of our ums. None of our ums will show up in the final recording because we click one button within Descript. I think what we're trying to help you as brand owners understand is like when people say AI, it's this big amorphous thing that talks a lot about all the different things that you could be using AI. And at the end of the day, as a brand owner, just like you're picking the right 3PL that matches your shipping times and all of that, you're picking the right AI tool to be able to solve a specific use case. So I think the next thing that we want to go to is talking about how you actually use AI to make actual ads. So whether it's concept generation, walk us through at Branch or at Best Ever when you're working with one of your DTC brands, like where is the AI actually being used to generate creatives that are actually being used in production?
Giving away all my secrets. No, I think maybe the way I'll start is just by expanding on what you alluded to, which is the life cycle of creating an ad. So the first step would obviously be concepting, right? We've got all this data that we have on who our customers are, what demographics they belong to. We have data on past ads and what has worked in the past. So putting all of that together and coming up with ideas, right? Pitches or concepts. And of course, we used AI, alluding to the previous theme, pretty extensively here these days to just come up with ideas, almost like an AI madman, right? And so let's say we've got 10 ideas that we want to then segment those ideas potentially by platform or by audience. We think that different ideas probably work better on Meta versus Google versus upscale in television. And so doing some amount of segmentation as well. And then I think that is probably another place where AI is useful. We probably still use our intuitions more with segmentation by platform, but we do have a sense that, okay, this is a narrative, this pitch that might be expressed better in a 15-second ad with a voiceover versus just like a 2-second meta ad where like you're going to scroll past it and you just will never get to the point. And then, of course, we get to creation, right? And how are we putting this ad together? And I would say right now there's a big gap between static ads and video ads. And that gap is starting to be crossed with tools like Upscale. I'm going to keep pitching them because I love them. But obviously with static ads, you can type into GPT-5 these days and put together some pretty compelling concepts. Now, where they typically fall short is actually representing your product in a really accurate way. And so we're not quite there yet with full put this branch ad in the Amazon and have an, I don't know, like branch wildly ergonomic, like a jungle themed concept. Can't do that yet, but getting closer. Video, obviously, like pretty hard to have a persistent object and actor and generate all of that. But what we can do is cut together different footage that we already have, which we do with tools like Upscale, and put together different variants. And that takes me to, I think, the last part of this cycle, and then it starts over again, which is optimization. And so doing variant testing, figuring out, okay, this is a general pitch that worked well, or this is a general static image that worked well with this color of product. Why don't we try it with this color? Or why don't we switch this other variable? And being able to iterate on different variables is, again, something that AI is starting to be useful for. I would say Figma and Adobe actually have pretty good capabilities here, where you can cut out parts of the scene that you want to test, preserve the parts that you don't want to change, and that's the life cycle. What did I miss, Apoorva?
You basically hit most of it. And I will say from my experience, obviously, we're a company that makes AI ads at scale. And most people who benefit from using tools like us do it because they're typically doing something that humans could not have done before. So what are those things? For example, one of the use cases that's very popular among our customers is number crunching. So they run 600 ads, 800 ads a week, and they want to try to figure out what was the messaging that worked really well in the top 10 percentile, or what's the hook that was in the top 10 percentile. If you're really running ads at such massive scale where you're spending like a few $1 million a month, it takes a lot of time for somebody to sit there, read through look at all those videos or look at all the statics and what's the common pattern, right? And that's the kind of thing that AI is really good at doing. And it will probably crunch like 600 videos in about 5 minutes or so, which is very little time when you think of this scale. So those things that humans would have taken like days or hours to do, AI is very good at doing it in minutes and seconds. And that's one use case where, for example, Best Ever does that. It's like the AI will look at all your videos, understand the messaging, and tell you, okay, the correlation between the data and then what was in the content was X. So that's one use case, doing videos at scale. So how does one do 1,000 videos overnight if you had creators? It's just not a use case that's possible today. For a lot of brands, that's where they're not necessarily concerned so much about quality. They maybe have a template that they want to repeat, but what they're trying to do is like a catalog video, or they're trying to do something where they know something works. They just need to scale it to 500 different SKUs or something like that. And those are things that humans just can't do today. And brands are willing to take the hit to say, I'm willing to experiment with this. Let's give it a shot. If I can get 1,000 videos overnight and I can pick out and run, good enough for them. So it's mostly where we see a lot of wins is at doing things at scale rather than trying to do the perfect one ad. I think that's more Kevin's forte. We're more at the scale side of things.
And I think it's platform dependent. At the end of the day, when you're running a 15 or 30-second television ad, like we have 54 active creatives with Branch right now in the platform, which is a lot of ads. If you're working with Meta, the brands that we work with typically are adding anywhere from 50 to 100 ads a week into Meta. Some of those are sourced through influencers. Some of those are created by their in-house team. So I think what I would love to hear, just getting a little bit more tactical on the use case for Best Ever. So I'm a brand, to your point, I have these 5 ads that are working for my best sellers. I can just go into your system, and if I have 700 SKUs, click a button, and the next 695 SKUs, you'll create ads for the rest of them.
Exactly. If it's an ad that you created outside of Best Ever, you'll maybe want to work with us so we can help templatize it for our AI. But if it's an ad that you created with Best Ever, scaling it super easy. Click of a button, bam, come back a few hours later, video is done. So that's typically how it works.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say most of the brands that we're working with have hundreds of active Meta ads, but that also means that they're adding, whether it's 10 a week or 100 a week, to figure out which ones are actually performing. And they're just always feeding new ads into Meta. One of the amazing things about these walled gardens, especially the media buying side of things, is they do a really good job of matching the ad to the person and the stage that they are within the buying process. And so this is one of the things that we try really hard to do at Upscale. And so because we own the media buying and the creative, we can introduce you to how amazing Branch is and how awesome their products are, and give you the chair and the desk riser and show you the full suite of products. But if you go to the desk riser page and you put it in your cart and don't check out, the next ad you'll see is for that individual product. And so in the same way that we're doing that on streaming, Meta is doing something very similar when it comes to the targeting. But you, as the brand owner, need to work with something like Best Ever in order to give them enough creative so that they can follow the user through that creative journey.
And if you think about the fundamental capability that these AI tools give you as a marketer, it is personalization, right? The dream at scale.
Personalization at scale.
Yes, very key, right? Because the dream experience, obviously, I can personalize my pitch to Kevin as a human to human interaction.
You did, and I ended up visiting your offices, and I ended up buying the daily limestone.
It's great. It's a great chair. But if I want to personalize a branch pitch to all of you, right? That was very hard to do. And we have, again, this technique in marketing called segmentation, where I can say, you guys are one demographic and you guys are one demographic. And maybe you can make 5 ad variants total with your human designer just doing it all, or maybe 50 if they're super hardworking. But if I wanted to make 150 ad variants, one for each of you, that would not be possible. And now, in theory, it is possible to have this truly personalized user journey, at least at the top of the funnel. And then what I think about on the digital product side is how do you mimic that personalization through the entire funnel and get someone to check out, seeing the perfect message for them, which for Kevin is maybe it's just limestone green all the way through. Like he loves that color,
Vegan. What's the
vegan
selling point?
limestone green. And so the ad says that, the image says that, the person is like limestone green, and the voiceover says that. And then you click to the site and the site says limestone green. Personalization is very powerful.
Plus one to that. Personalization and scale are two things that AI is really good at. The quality piece, obviously, depending on how complex the product is, I think AI still stumbles a lot. So if I were a brand owner today, and if I were doing performance marketing, I would use a lot of what he was saying, which is variations, trying maybe multiple different actors, different messaging, different CTA, different hooks. Like these are the areas where you can really truly try, where you could have done 50 creatives a week before, you can do 250, right? So I think the unlock here is how much experimentation you can do. Facebook even says, right, in the last release of their new algorithm updates, what they say is the more creatives you have, the more likely that your cost per acquisition will come down, and they would be able to find that perfect person or to show that creative to. So if I were a brand, I would significantly invest in experimenting with creatives rather than trying to control on the media buying side, because Facebook is pretty damn good at the media buying. You could just tell them, target everybody in the world and figure out where my ads need to go, and they'll do it. The only thing that they don't do right now is creative. I imagine at some point they'll do that too.
They're working on it.
Yeah.
I think Zuckerberg said on a panel, he just wants you to attach your bank account and they'll just send you new customers.
Yeah, and they'll figure it out for that particular walled garden. I want to add one last note on this, particular to television, right? Which is this medium that has resisted personalization. So when we talk about personalization, it has existed substantially on Meta for years, right? There's this whole AI media buying technology they have called Advantage Shopping, which those of you in the biz have probably heard of. And most brands are just putting most of their budget into this AI campaign strategy, right? That hasn't existed on TV, like until very recently, until probably not, when did you guys start?
18 months ago.
18 months ago. Really, like when we're talking about linear television, which is traditional TV, you just get the ad that you get. There's not really that much targeting you can do. Maybe geographically, even though that's 10 times more expensive on a impression basis, what we call a cost per impression. But with connected TV, you do have this opportunity to personalize on the big screen, so to speak, or the big screen relative to your phone, the small screen. And that's something that hasn't existed before. And the thing that really unlocked that personalization is video creative at scale. And so that's like really the bleeding edge of marketing right now, is this brand new way to give people personal user journeys on this medium that has historically been very hard to crack in that way.
And I'll add to that, that whether it is running on Meta or it's running on streaming, there is, as a brand owner, the quality bar has to meet your quality bar. So when we first got started, there was this threshold where a lot of the times the stuff that you were pulling out of AI didn't meet that quality threshold as a brand owner. And so I would say that whether it is with Best Ever or Upscale, like it's one thing to be able to just go in ChatGPT and say, make a Facebook ad for me, or go into VO3 and make a 30-second television commercial. It's another thing to make one that your creative and your brand team are going to approve. And that's where I think from our perspective and having checked out the Best Ever product, it's brand approved quality creative is a really high bar for a lot of these companies. You can put AI slop out there, getting high enough brand quality where the voiceover is good, where the video is good, where your brand is pixel perfect and how it shows up. All of those things take a lot of attention in order to get right. And so having these tools that are helping brands be able to make high quality volume creative at scale is the hard part. Now let's talk about performance. So why don't you walk through some of the performance numbers that some of the brands are seeing across Meta?
Yeah, again, it's the advantage of doing creatives at scale is before it would take a lot of time to do this. So getting that one creative that has a ROAS of 2x or 3x would require like a month of experimentation with maybe like 10 creatives or whatever. Now, when we use Best Ever, the time to experimentation has cut down a lot. So what would take 4 weeks now takes about a week and a half now because you're producing more content at the very starting point. So the time for experimentation is down. And we also see something like 2x the ROAS with whatever they would have started, then ship it, and then come back to Best Ever, analyze what is working, what is not. And then the next version is potentially 2x or 3x the ROAS numbers that you were seeing before. That's something that we've seen ourselves.
And how many creatives are being exported or imported into Meta like on a daily or weekly basis?
The number is really skews because some of our enterprise clients do something like 10,000 or 15,000 creatives a month. The smaller brands tend to skew the numbers. But yeah, I would say maybe anywhere between 10,000 to 15,000 a month.
We're in the hundreds, just to be clear. I think last quarter we did about 375 unique creatives. So sometimes that's a 15 and a 30. Sometimes it's a sale or something along those lines. Walk us through, I think the question is, however much you're spending, what percentage of the creative that you're running today is coming from AI?
All of the upscale creative.
Definitely the voiceovers, not the video assets, the voiceovers, the
Yes.
scripts, everything else.
And if it wasn't clear, the life cycle with Upscale is that we have all of these influencer videos, we have all of these photos. And in the past, that's like, cool, like that's great. You can use those on Meta, but you can't really remix them into a TV ad. And so instead of having to go out there and shoot like $100,000 TV spot, we still do that, to be clear, but you can't do that all the time. And now we can put that all into a Dropbox effectively, and Upscale will take it. And I don't know who uses CapCut in this audience or any, yeah, it's like a CapCut for television. It'll take it, it'll mix it up, and it'll put out the ads, which then, of course, I think are reviewed by your creative team, by my creative team.
Yeah, I think that's an important note. So we use AI to obviously draft everything. And then Joycey up here on our team, I think AI is really good at creating a first example or like an average version of a lot of things. We still think that the best combination is human plus AI when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Oftentimes you'll give us, we want to use this word instead of that word. We want to change the voiceover. Hey, can we change the end card, etc.? So those are all super easy tweaks to be made before the creative actually gets approved.
That's right. Yeah. And I would say, again, shout out to my team. They have an extraordinarily high bar. Like they're very like AI skeptical, I would say, from a creative standpoint. And like they do want that final look at the quality and at the brand alignment. And perhaps in the future, maybe in a shorter future than we think, that won't be as necessary. But for now, it is. So that's call it 10% of our spend at this point, which again is pretty shockingly high for a challenger channel to scale to that portion of our budget, our advertising budget, in like less than 6 months, really. So that's cool. And then probably at least another 20% of our ad budget is deeply informed by AI, even if it's not generated strictly by AI. So we do some experimentation with AI generated static and still images, like I said. Largely, it's variants of existing images that we did shoot the old fashioned way. And we sell furniture. It's really important to get the setting right, the texture right. We don't want imprecision in these images. But what we will do is adjust the variables that are more impactful, but not as critical to the quality of the image and to conveying the accuracy of the product. So call it a third overall to answer your question.
I
Yep.
have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
If AI and upscale didn't exist, and if you had to do traditionally TV ads, do you think you would still be able to afford it if it weren't for the...
Yeah, it's a great question. We filmed traditional TV spots before. We filmed 2 of them. They're always 6 figures and we negotiate. So they're very expensive and there is creative fatigue. I would say we'd probably be constrained on spend and there would be a spend impact or there might be an iteration impact. There would be some impact.
So they're reducing a lot of friction and cost along with being able to do a lot of ads.
Yeah, like ultimately, it's like we're scaling spend in this channel when we
Right.
see the performance. And so, to the extent that more creative is an input into performance or varying these key variables is an input into performance, it does hamper our ability to scale to not have the
Makes
tools.
sense. Thank you.
And do you know the brands that use your product? Are the ads that are coming out of what you're doing, is that like a third of their spend? Is it half? They probably work with human influencers for at least some part of their spend.
Yeah, it depends. Some of the traditional-ish brands, they're actually replacing agencies with just pure humans. They used to have 20 people doing ads all day, and it was costing a lot for our clients because they're a traditional company and they can't really scale at the same rate. So for them, it's probably 100%. Starting sometime this fall, it will be 100%. The one caveat I will make is that they all still have a little bit of human intervention, either at the very beginning of the process where they say, okay, let's define some templates that I really want to keep varying over. So either the human intervention happens in the very beginning or at the end. If they're not doing 3,000 ads or whatever, they will have the intervention at the end where they will do 10 ads, have their team look through, edit pieces and stuff. AI is really good at these efficiency gains. I think we'd be remiss if we said there's zero human involvement anywhere, right? That's just absolutely not true. Depending on your scale, either you have humans at the very beginning defining what the parameters are, or you have them in the end to check the work like what Upscale does to make sure the quality is up to the mark and stuff like that.
Because if you can define what good looks like for your
Right.
brand up front, you probably have less iterations on the back end to meet that standard.
Right. Last question before we do Q&A. So the last question, and I'll frame it with a year ago when we made ads, we used voice actors. And we had to tell the voice actor, get them the script, come up with 10 or 15 different versions. Today, none of our creatives have any voice actors anymore. We have one set of creative that's still running, but every net new creative is now using AI to do the voiceovers. And I would say voiceover has gotten to the point where the voiceover actors are actually better than the human actors at recording, enunciation, inflection, all of those different things. So are there any things where you see video, other places where maybe it's less of a do you see? Where are the places where you hope AI is going to go from 5 or 10% of the usage today to be something that you can just prompt it and it's able to fully execute, call it in the next year or two?
A huge laundry list, actually. For me, the top 3 things that AI fails, and it just is miserable right now, that I hope will improve, is in the physics of the videos. So a lot of the times there's a third hand. I know it's a little bit better now, but I still
Or
think
6 fingers.
six fingers still more acceptable than a third hand, which is more obvious. I think those are the physics of the video still needs a little bit of an update. So I think that one, and then making humans not look plasticky. Even VO3, which is like the cutting edge of video generation, still has some of that. So I hope for models that understand physics better, The second thing that I'm hoping will be really good, which is a huge pain point for all of our brands, is the text overlay. So AI does really nice environment setting and things like that, but screws up the label or something like that. So we've done a lot of work on top to try to make it so that it won't do that, but it's still like 90% of the times it's good, 10% of the times, which is sometimes not an acceptable error threshold for a lot of our brands there. I hope models get better. And then finally, the third one that is a personal pain point that I talked about earlier too is lip syncing. Lip syncing has really huge implications. It means like you can create actors with AI and make them say whatever you want without having to rely on the video models to also get really good. There are quite a few lip syncing models out there that are pretty good, but they're not as good as I wish they were. So those are my hopes for the next few months and maybe weeks at this point that we'll get improvements in.
Nice. That's a good answer. I co-sign on all of those like tactical points. I think I'm going to try and give like a principle based answer because I know this can be like an uncomfortable topic, right? Like we all have creative friends who are involved in these industries. I know I do. And I think for me, the answer is I would like to use AI where it is not affecting the authenticity of the representation of my brand and where it is providing capabilities that as a medium-sized brand we just could not afford otherwise that feel important to an authentic representation of Branch. And the good news is that there's a lot of surface area there. So like authentically conveying the features of our product in a way that is really accurate, that is upholding the physics of the real world, that is showing someone using it. I think like I'd love to be able to do that accurately and well with a tool like Upscale, where I'm not really as excited as like having an AI influencer pitch my product. I don't know. I don't need that. Like it's a fake endorsement and it's not really what I want to do. It's not how I want to represent my brand. Others might feel differently, but I was told to make my takes spicy so they get shared. But that's honestly how I feel. Similarly, I think it'd be very cost prohibitive for Branch to do an ad with a huge B2B office space. We do furnish offices for thousands of people all the time. They don't typically love us flying a drone in there and like filming the space, right? So that is something I'd love to generate with AI. It's not taking away from anyone, it's authentic, and it gives us a capability we didn't have before. So those are sort of two principles that I would articulate. But in general, yeah, we would love to, within those principles, experiment as widely and frequently as we can. So there's a lot of room.
Yeah, and we've played around with turning some static images from Branch into videos. So the hallucinations are crazy. If you go to our website and go to the wrong page, you'll see our CEO in a Branch chair. And the prompt was have the person in the chair spin around, and he starts doing 360s with 6 legs. So I think we're not quite there on the video generation side of things. I think when I look at how things were with 11 Labs, call it a year ago, the ability to put a person at a desk, take that person out, change that person's identity, like these things are close, but they're not here yet. Even doing like more than 8 seconds in 1080p, we can do 720 pretty easily. We can't do 1080p. So there's just like little things that I would have assumed are still like a year away from being something that we actually start incorporating into television commercials. But I would say like we're starting to use AI to draft more. So the ability to take a prompt, include one of the brand's images, and turn that into show me, we used this last week, show me this kid walking to school with his parents wearing the backpack. So we can turn that into 4 or 5 seconds of video from just a still frame of a child being walked to school with their backpack. So that's where like it's here today. It's not here in a good enough version that you would spend $25 CPMs to run it on television, but it's at the point where it's getting closer and closer by the day.
Sign me up. Yeah.
All right. So raise your hand if you have a question. Please say your name and if you're with a Shopify brand or a company, and then your question.
Common complaint that I hear from clients with image generation is that it's not photorealistic enough. How have you guys been tackling that challenge?
This is a very painful problem, especially if you're using GPT or something like that. It's pretty bad. Turns out that the best way to solve this problem, at least the way we've solved it, is we've just given access to all the different models within our platform to the user and said, you know what? We make it super easy for you to just hit a button and say, do with a different model until you get like 50 different images and you have 50 in 1 minute, and then you pick out two that are good. The improvements are happening and we're sitting at the cutting edge of it. It's just not quite there and nobody has it, right? So as a brand, you don't have to worry about, oh shit, is my competitor using some cool stuff that I'm not? Everybody's having the same problems. Everybody is sitting at the cutting edge and thinking the best thing you can do is pick a platform where your team, your creative team is happy to work on. They feel comfortable, they feel supported because they have access to all the cool stuff. I think if you're a brand owner or an agency, the best thing you can do is give all your people access to all the tools that they enjoy working with, and then hopefully the tool does the job.
We don't use photorealistic generative AI images because they're not good enough. And so at the moment, we're just not using them until they get good enough. Same with when we got started, we didn't use AI voiceovers because they weren't good enough. So I think until they reach the point that brands are going to approve them, we don't even show them to the customer. So at this point, we'll test it internally and we have a fun research channel and we share funny images with each other, but it's not at the point that people are going to actually use it in production for their creative.
I don't have too much to add, but like every time we try to use it to make up one of our products, it's wrong. Yeah, it's not ready yet.
Hi, I'm Nimi. I own a scented candle company and my brand is on Shopify.
Wait, what's the scented candles?
Yeah,
What's the domain?
it's called Sentiel.com. So Sentiel.com.
And you have a discount code?
I can create one tonight.
All right, we'll send it out in the follow-up. But what's your question?
Thank you. My question is, I know you mentioned like hundreds and thousands of creatives in a month. So my question is, does that work with Meta says not to spread your budget too thin? And then on the ad level, does that mean like thousands of builds or hundreds of builds? Like, how does that work? How do you make so many?
Meta used to recommend that before, but I think the recommendation was more around the campaign side of things to create multiple of these campaigns and goals. But if you have one single campaign and if you're running only a few ad sets, I think throwing in more creative into a given ad set is the recommended way for Meta. At least from what I read recently, that is the recommended way to do things, is to try as many creatives as possible. So when we're talking about ads, we're specifically talking about creative variety and not so much on the campaign setup or potentially even the number of ad sets and things like that. If you'd like to talk about the nitty gritty of it, I'm happy to talk after what's worked for our clients. But what I have seen them do is basically hundreds of creatives even in a single ad set. If they have a thesis like that, then they will do 50 different creatives under one single ad set.
I'll just quickly add that it depends on your scale of spend, right? So best practice is definitely consolidated campaign structure and then creative variants, but that number of variants is very heavily dependent on your spend.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Anyone else with a Shopify brand want to ask a question? Right here.
My question is, you guys spoke earlier about the feedback loop between analysis and concepting in order to generate new creative. And you even mentioned that AI can often be good at creating the best version of an average. How do you create space for divergent thinking, whether that's the concept that never would have come up with from analyzing 1,000 different ads, or the voice artist delivery who delivered something in a way that was more than just the pleasant and direct in a warm, friendly tone?
Because AI is the average of what it sees, and the average is pretty, as they say, average. So if you're really looking for something super creative that's very out of the usual, humans are still the source of all different thinking creativity.
I agree that you shouldn't rely on an AI to provide original thinking on its own. I think it can be a really good co-pilot, right? With any creative task, there's iteration. I write fiction on the side, right? It works the same way. I'm not really letting the AI write anything at first, but it is giving me feedback on ideas. I'm feeding it things. It's riffing back to me. I think it can be a great collaborator, right? Like the Peggy to your Don if you're a Mad Men fan relationship.
I think a lot of it has to do with prompting. We're creating television ads, so we are trying to create creative that is average or above. It is what you would expect to see running on a television. When we're trying to come up with something off the wall, we are prompting it to, okay, now that you gave me these 20 ideas, throw all of them out, come up with something totally off the wall. I think it comes down to prompting the different LLMs to come up with something unique as a co-pilot. I think that when we put our prompts into production, we've been testing those different prompts for months at a time to come up with our different concepts and our different scripts. And the output is very specific. Here's a 7-second end card that asks you to go to the website with a coupon code and a call to action. So like that output has been really well defined. Your ability to work with the prompts to be able to say, I need you to come up with 25 off the wall ideas. If it's an average idea, don't use it. I believe in this newest model, do things like think about the idea, come up with some ideas that you might originally come up with, throw all of those out and then start over, ignoring those original ones. So I think you can do a lot with the prompting to come up with off the wall ideas. But I think in general, AI is going to give you the middle 95%. It's not going to give you the 2.5% outliers on either side.
We're going to take a question from back here.
Okay.
I had a question. So I know when it comes to growth, a lot of conversation around AI is focused around content and creation, of course, but I know you mentioned earlier that AI could also be used for efficiency. So I'm curious when it comes to that side of things for brands that are scaling, especially like fast scaling brands where I imagine customer experience usually can break at the operational layer. Do you guys see AI helping brands predict where those operational bottlenecks like will start killing margins, or is it more trial and error, figure it out? Or do you think there is a way to predict that?
Yeah, I think it's almost the opposite in a way where it's like the stuff that is broken in your processes that's really manual, like you know what it is, right? And it's been annoying you for a while, but you've had other priorities or the
Yeah.
humans on your team have been busy. And so I think the stuff that's obvious is typically where you would start. So like CS tickets, you can definitely create a frontline chatbot, or you can use one of the many startups out there to triage. And that seems like an obvious use case. And in fact, it works. I think our AI chatbot is triaging like 40% of our tickets these days and resolving them without human intervention. And there's still 60% that need humans. Like similarly, if there's a process, like a weekly meeting you have, then, you take the inputs from that and maybe you put them into your forecasting process for your next inventory buy. Like, okay, take the notes, synthesize them, identify the drivers of your next inventory purchase, positive, negative variance, and you draft your model that way.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity. So I'd start where it's obvious, and you're probably right.
No, that makes sense. The reason I asked because, like you said, the complaints, things like that, I feel like a lot of AI is centered around how to fix these things or after sell, like post things. But I'm wondering how it can solve where the friction is in the first place, as opposed to putting a Band-Aid on it with AI.
And to that point, where can people get a hold of you, contact you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sib at branchfurniture.com. And I'm happy to, I'll just give you my AI efficiency playbook that I wrote for the business.
Round of applause for Sib.
On LinkedIn and X, both. You can also just flag me down and talk to me today, and happy to share my email. I'm apoorva@bestever.ai.
And I'm Kevin at Upscale AI. Thank you again for joining us. This was a great panel. Thanks everyone for coming out in the rain.